Check your change, seriously. Because among the everyday dimes rolling through your hands, there are rare coins worth tens of thousands of dollars. And you'd never know just by looking. Stick around, because today we're revealing the stories behind the most valuable one-dime coins you could ever find. Hold on tight, because what looks like a regular pocket dime might just be worth a small fortune. Today, we're starting our journey with a coin that millions of people handle every single day, without realizing its true potential. It's tiny. It's common. But under the right circumstances, it's rumored to be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Sounds unbelievable? Maybe. But by the end of this video, you'll see why the 1984 Roosevelt dime deserves a much closer look. Most of us barely notice a dime. It's light. Slips between the couch cushions. Ends up in coin jars and car cup holders. But to collectors, dimes aren't just pocket change, they're miniature pieces of history. And sometimes, they carry secrets that only a trained eye can spot. So, let's rewind. The story of the Roosevelt dime starts in 1946, just after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He had led the country through the Great Depression and most of World War II. But there was something else. Roosevelt had been deeply affected by polio. He helped establish the March of Dimes, which raised funds to combat the disease. And when he passed away, the U.S. honored him the best way it could, by placing his portrait on the dime. The design was fast-tracked and struck by the U.S. Mint within months. Sculpted by John R. Sinek, the dime features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. The design has remained nearly unchanged ever since. But the metal content hasn't. In 1965, the U.S. removed silver from most circulating coins, including the dime. From that point forward, dimes were made of a copper core with a nickel outer layer, a clad composition. This made them cheaper to produce, but also meant they lost their intrinsic metal value. So now we arrive in 1984, the year of the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. Apple launched the first Macintosh computer. Ghostbusters ruled the box office. And in Philadelphia, the U.S. Mint produced over 850 million Roosevelt dimes. Yes, 850 million. That's nearly 3 dimes for every person in the United States at the time. With such a massive mintage, the 1984 dime should be just another common coin, right? Well, not exactly. Because in the world of coin collecting, value doesn't always come from age, or how many were made. It comes from condition. From rarity. From uniqueness. And sometimes, from error. Most 1984 dimes are still worth just 10 cents. Maybe a bit more if they're clean and uncirculated. But here's where things get interesting. A small number of 1984 dimes have been discovered in exceptional condition. We're talking nearly perfect surfaces, sharp details, and absolutely no wear. These are coins that have never been touched by circulation. Coins that were somehow preserved perfectly from the moment they left the mint. And that's not all. Some collectors claim to have found coins with unique striking errors, double dies, die breaks, off-center strikes, or even incorrect planchets. In a sea of hundreds of millions, even a few such oddities can become incredibly rare. Now, let's talk about grading. When coins are professionally graded, they're given a score on a scale from 1 to 70. A grade of MS, mint state, 65 is considered very nice. MS 67 is elite. But MS 68 and above? That's ultra gem territory. That's where prices go from small change to serious money. A 1984 Roosevelt dime graded MS 68, with full torch details, meaning the horizontal bands on the torch are perfectly struck, is extremely difficult to find. There are only a few known to exist at that level. And when rarity meets demand, things get wild. One of these near-perfect specimens reportedly fetched massive attention from high-end collectors. The kind of attention that turns a 10-cent coin into a jaw-dropping investment. How much, you ask? Well, let's build the suspense a bit more. Imagine holding something in your hand that fits between your fingers, weighs just 2.3 grams, and yet could be worth more than most people's cars. That's the kind of shock value we're talking about with this coin. But don't get too excited just yet. Because out of 850 million coins, only a few dozen are graded even close to MS-68. And only a microscopic number are considered candidates for the highest grades possible. Still, those numbers make it worth checking your change. You never know what might be hiding at the bottom of your coin jar, or buried in a forgotten drawer. So, what's the final number? How much did a top-graded 1984 P. Roosevelt dime reportedly sell for? Get ready. Because the estimated value is a mind-blowing $73,000. But remember, this kind of value only applies to a coin in pristine, top-grade condition, authenticated and certified by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. If yours has scratches, wear, or signs of circulation, it's likely worth face value. But if it's sharp, lustrous, and untouched, it might be worth sending in for grading. Now let's move on to the second dime in today's spotlight. What you're about to hear might sound unbelievable, because it's not every day that a coin so modern, so recent, and so small can carry such weight in the collecting world. But the 1991 D. Roosevelt dime is exactly that kind of coin. A modern mystery. A simple mistake. And a secret that made its way into the hands of the unsuspecting public. It looks like any other dime. Same weight, same feel, same design. We've all seen hundreds, if not thousands, of times. But hidden among the billions produced that year was a quiet anomaly that slipped past inspection and became one of the most fascinating errors of the late 20th century. In 1991, the Denver Mint was running at full capacity. The U.S. economy was strong, coins were being produced in huge volumes, and the Roosevelt dime, already a familiar face on American currency since 1946, was one of the most commonly struck denominations. The D mint mark, located just to the left of the torch and below the date on the obverse, was standard. It signified that the coin had been minted in Denver. Millions upon millions carried that tiny letter. It was nothing special. It was expected. But then came the mistake. Somewhere along the way, a coin die, one of the hardened steel tools used to stamp the design onto blank planchets, was prepared without the D mint mark. A simple oversight, but one with major consequences. That die went into production, striking dimes exactly as it was made, without a mint mark. Smooth. Blank. Silent. These mint-markless dimes were released into circulation with the rest of the 1991 batch. They moved through banks, cash registers, pockets, and coin rolls. Most people never noticed. Why would they? It's just a dime. But to those who knew what to look for, that missing letter told a very different story. The error went undetected at the mint. No recall. No correction. And because it was never announced, there was no early spotlight on the coin. It wasn't until years later that collectors began spotting them, and realized something extremely rare had quietly entered the public's hands. What makes this even more fascinating is that mintmark errors on dimes are incredibly uncommon. They've occurred only a few times in modern minting history. And in each case, they've created coins that are both elusive and highly desirable. Now, let's talk about why this particular dime matters so much. Most 1991 dimes, with or without the D, are still just worth 10 cents. But the ones that were struck without a mint mark and have survived in pristine condition? That's where the true rarity lies. It's not just about the error, it's about preservation. Circulation damages coins. Scratches. Dings. Wear. Fingerprints. All of these reduce a coin's grade and, with it, its potential value. That's why the few 1991 no mint mark dimes that have been found in uncirculated, high-grade condition are so special. They are time capsules. Crisp edges. Bold details. full luster. As if the coin just left the press yesterday. Very few of these flawless examples exist. And that scarcity drives demand. Collectors compete for them. They're discussed in forums. Traded between serious enthusiasts. Because this is more than just a mistake, it's a legendary find in the world of modern US coinage. Now, imagine being the person who spotted it first. Maybe they were sorting through a roll of dimes. Maybe it dropped into their hand as change from a store. 1 second, it was just another coin. The next, it was a key to something far more valuable than anyone could have expected. This coin has become a symbol of how easily something extraordinary can blend in with the ordinary. And in the right condition, graded, certified, and preserved, its value has reached a level that most people wouldn't believe unless they saw it themselves. The highest known value ever recorded for this coin, in top-tier mint state condition, is $65,000. That's not a typo. That's not a guess. That's a reality. $65,000, for a single dime, struck in 1991, and released without fanfare. No silver. No gold. Just a clad coin that shouldn't have existed the way it did. This coin is now part of American numismatic history. A modern marvel. A quiet mistake that became a legend. And it's out there. It could still be sitting in someone's drawer. In a coin jar. In a forgotten roll in the back of a bank. Because unlike ancient rarities or famous silver dollars, this dime doesn't look unusual at first glance. It blends in. Until you look closer. And that's what makes it such a compelling second feature in today's video. The 1991 D. Roosevelt dime, simple in appearance, but extraordinary in story. A coin that proves value isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's silent. Hidden. And all the more powerful because of it. So next time you're holding a handful of change, take one more look. Because sometimes, the smallest oversight in minting, leads to the biggest surprise in collecting. In the last spotlight of today's video, we turn our attention to a coin that quietly emerged at the edge of a new millennium. A coin so common, so easily overlooked, that most people never gave it a second glance. Yet among the flood of circulation-ready coins in 1999, something went wrong, and that tiny error created one of the most valuable modern dimes ever discovered. This is the story of the 1999 D. Roosevelt dime, a coin that began its journey like any other. But one unexpected twist in the minting process turned it into a silent giant of the collecting world. By 1999, the Roosevelt dime had already been a fixture in American pockets for over 5 decades. Since 1946, it had faithfully carried the image of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, honoring his leadership and his historic connection to the March of Dimes. The Denver Mint, marked by the small D on the coin, was responsible for striking hundreds of millions of dimes that year. In fact, it was just another year of high-speed, high-volume coin production. But not every coin came out the way it was supposed to. Somewhere along the assembly line, in the middle of this mechanical rhythm of die strikes and planchet feeds, something happened. A flaw. A mechanical misstep. Maybe the planchet wasn't aligned correctly. Maybe a die cracked mid-run. Whatever the cause, the result was clear: an error dime was created. These aren't subtle flaws that need magnifying glasses to find. This was bold. Visible. Unmistakable. Some 1999 D. Roosevelt dimes were struck off-center, causing the design to shift dramatically away from its intended position. Others were clipped, where part of the coin is literally missing, as if a bite was taken out of it. And some displayed broad strikes, where the collar die failed to properly contain the planchet, causing the coin to expand unevenly. Each of these errors alone is worth attention. But when they happen on a coin from a massive mintage year, and they survive in near-perfect condition, the rarity multiplies. Most error coins are found after they've been circulated. They show scratches, dents, smudges, and wear. But not this one. The finest examples of the 1999 D-era dime were discovered early, before they had the chance to be worn down by time. They were saved, protected, and eventually graded by professionals. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary. In the world of coin collecting, grade matters. A simple error is interesting. But an error in mint state condition, with full luster, flawless surfaces, and sharp detail, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a treasure. Now, combine that high-grade condition with a dramatic striking error, and suddenly, a 10-cent coin takes on a whole new level of significance. Collectors don't just want it. They chase it. Because these pieces tell a different story, not just about the coin, but about the mint itself. About the human element behind a machine-driven system. About how even in an age of automation, imperfection can still find its way into the final product. And when it does, and when it's preserved, it transforms a routine piece of currency into a high-value collectible. The Roosevelt dime's design is classic. Familiar. But a design that shifts, breaks, or warps due to an error creates something truly one-of-a-kind. There is no second copy. No exact match. These aren't mint varieties, they are pure anomalies. The few known 1999 D. Roosevelt dimes with significant mint errors and high-grade preservation are so scarce that they are now considered trophy coins for modern-era collectors. They are featured in discussions, displayed in showcases, and regarded as standouts in collections where most coins from the same year remain ignored. So what does that kind of rarity, condition, and collector demand lead to? It leads to value. Real value. And not just hundreds or thousands. The finest known example of this 1999 D. Roosevelt dime, struck with a rare error and preserved in brilliant mint state condition, has been valued at an astonishing $52,000. Yes, $52,000. For a dime that most people wouldn't look twice at. For a coin that measures just under 18 millimeters, weighs only 2.3 grams, and yet carries a value that exceeds the annual salary of many Americans. This isn't a story of silver or gold. It's not about old age or ancient history. It's about modern minting, and how one small mistake can change everything. This coin represents the incredible potential that still exists in modern pocket change. It's proof that you don't need to dig up ancient hoards or search estate auctions to find value. Sometimes, that value is already in your hand, hiding in plain sight. And with that, we close our journey through 3 dimes. 3 small coins, each carrying an unexpected story. From the rare perfection of the 1984 P, to the quiet mystery of the 1991 D no mint mark, to this final and dramatic 1999 D error, each one shows us that numismatic history is still being written. Even in recent years. Even in everyday change. So take a second look. At the coins you spend. The ones you collect. The ones that others overlook. Because as these 3 dimes have shown us today, the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises.